Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The teams are arriving in Toronto for the upcoming Masters Toronto tournament. Sentinels now among them. They've been giving their comments over the last couple of days as to which teams they're going to be watching out for in this tournament. Potential dark horses of the entire tournament. Wolves are certainly one of them. Of course, Sentinels play them in the first round. Of course, they might well say that. But the other names they mention are rather interesting, certainly compared to the favourites for the entire thing, and whether Sentinels can get the job done again on the international stage. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Thought this is kind of cool to look back on for Gen.G here, of course, with Fnatic doing so well again in recent weeks and months, getting back to the top of European Valorant, which it felt for some time might not be so easy. But yeah, as Jake says, my mate Jake Howlett, right, of course, Boaster, and the rest since then is history. And as Boaster says, no energy to vlog this event though, I'll just do some fun stories, and we've got some examples of that here with Crashies. So, you know, pretty funny. They've got a few days to chill out and prepare and try some snacks, as Boaster likes to do for the tournament, but then it's of course strictly business out there in Toronto for these teams. So some of the European teams, of course, they likely arrived a little bit earlier, right, because they had, you know, obviously if you're traveling further you probably want to arrive a couple of days earlier, whereas for Sentinels they, it seems, flew out there yesterday. I will briefly mention, if you guys aren't aware of it, that Omen is back in the game, has been officially re-enabled, got disabled, but yeah, Riot got on top of that one, so Omen is now officially back in. And Heretics Miniboo, he's also out there as well. The Heretics qualified, of course, although they will definitely look back at that EMEA final and think, okay, maybe we could have done a little bit better. And of course, but by making the final, they also qualified for the Esports World Cup, and that's been a big talking point for various reasons over the last few weeks. But yes, Miniboo says, what are the best servers to play on? Because, you know, I've got Illinois, he's got North Virginia, he's got, you know, Georgia, Texas, you know, Northern California, Oregon, etc. So, you know, a few options on the table there, but of course, Miniboo and the Heretics also out there ready to go. In addition, of course, to Sentinels now. So, you know, we see that Sentinels put this out here yesterday. We got John QT, we got Zeltis in the airport at the gate, ready to get cracking, and they officially turned up and collected everything. So yeah, here we go. And I've got a couple of clips to share from the two sides of this here in a second. I thought it was pretty funny to see Marved because, you know, maybe there's some history here, of course, in Canada with this team. We know that with TENS and with Marved in recent years, they've of course had that type of representation. And look, maybe Marved, whether he's going to come back or not at some point has always been a question over the last couple of years. He had that brief foray again with the Sentinels. He came back briefly on, you know, to try and make it work in challenges, just subbed in for a couple of matches, never really, you know, planned out for the long time. I think for someone like Marved, as talented as he is and was maybe as a player, but potentially still could be, the motivation to scrim and grind and practice every single day, you know, that's the real challenge, I think, for players like him. But I'd still like to see him back in some force. And I imagine that he's probably going to be there, I don't know, with the Sentinels or whatever they're going to do anyway out there in Toronto. I imagine that Marved could be a part of it. So he says, consider yourselves protected. Of course, TENS did the kind of over the announcements video, right, the voiceover for the Swiss stage explainer. And we'll just have a quick look at that again here in a second. And there were some interesting tweets saying, look, the mental health of many individuals, let's say it's important how Sentinels do, and Zekken says, actually, yeah, very similar thing for myself as well, how the Sentinels Valorant team does during this tournament. So just to mention here, these are the 12 teams that are going to be there in attendance. Actually, these are 8 teams, and the other 4 are as follows. So, you know, these 4 teams, let's actually have a look at the playoffs so we can see the 4 teams that I wanted to mention. These 4 teams are the number 1 from their region, right? So these aren't teams that are going to be dark horses necessarily. I guess it depends on your perspective, because G2 and Fnatic are big favourites for the whole tournament, right? So, you know, they're not going to be the kind of names that Sentinels are going to talk about here, because they're talking more about, okay, who's an overlooked team who has potential to do a lot, and we're not really seeing it for now. I think RRQ, you know, could they fall into that category as well? I mean, possibly. That they weren't exactly an expected winner, and they've had, you know, plenty of drama with the whole crazy guy stuff. I mean, it wasn't long ago they lost back-to-back matches to Nongshim Red Force, right? And, okay, things were slightly different back then in terms of time frame, but fundamentally that's the same roster that they just beat Gen.G with 3-1 and 4 maps in the grand finals to win the whole region. So, you know, I think for RRQ, the potential is absolutely there, and they won their own region. You know, would they still be considered a surprise champion? I mean, absolutely they would, although Jemkin has been playing for some time like the best player in the game. His numbers are just ridiculous in the last 60 days, 90 days, 30 days, or whatever you want to say. It's the same story. So, that's certainly a team that you could keep in mind. The other team, of course, that JonQT looks at briefly as well, though, is the XLG guys. The interesting thing, of course, about XLG is that until very recently, we didn't actually know who they were going to field as their roster. There was lots of drama recently because Yu was gone from the organization for, various conduct-related investigation reasons after beating Billy in the grand finals to actually make it, and Yu, of course, was a big part of that. Again, it is the case of Russian player, Raga in this case, absolutely cooking, and they took down BLG in the finals, and they, of course, qualified as a result. But shortly after that, Yu has been gone from the franchise and is now not listed anywhere here on VLR, and the replacement they've signed instead is Midi, who's come over from Trace Esports. So, pretty big acquisition. They've made this move over the last couple of days, and they've now finalized their roster with Yu gone, basically at the center of match fixing controversy, and they will be looking potentially at a 6-man team as well, with Martin continuing to substitute in there if they require it. So, relatively new face, played a bit for Trace as well, so we'll see, right? Because there's talk about how good these guys could be, whether Midi's a good option, whether they can keep up that level, but of course, they have the bye in the bracket through to the second round anyway, or through to the playoffs at the very least. The Swiss stage, we will go here from 8 teams down to 4, and this is really where Sentinels are kind of casting their eyes to which of these teams could potentially be dark horse rosters, because I think Heretics and Gen.G and even Sentinels themselves, and even maybe MIBR, I think you kind of know what you should expect from those teams. The other teams, it's a little bit more unclear. Always the Chinese teams are in this category of not really knowing how good they're going to turn up to be internationally, because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, just the way that the playstyles mesh and executing as they do domestically. But the two that I find interesting are maybe one Liquid, because they're bringing in Penny, of course, for the tournament, given the Nats can't go. Maybe that could even work somehow, but it's pretty doubtful. And then it's Paper X, really, because I think Paper X find themselves in a remarkable position whereby, yes, they're still Paper X, but their performances so far this year at least started off being so lackluster that they weren't really considered to be in the conversation with the teams that we've mentioned. But in the last couple of months, then they turned it around. They went through, okay, they lost to RRQ in the end, but they did qualify for the international tournament in Toronto, so they're certainly a name to keep an eye on as well. This is what the Sentinels guys have to say.
Question from Kin. Who do you think are the underdogs of Toronto?
Wolves. Wolves? Done. Marshall?
I don't know. I was going to say Wolves. Let's just go with Paper X.
Ooh. I want to say the same thing. Paper X.
Liquid with Penny.
He's got lost his mind. He's got lost his mind.
I'll say XLG.
Ooh.
I think they're first seed of China and people are not really giving them respect.
Yeah.
So
Rarga. Rarga's so good. He's going to start Rargaing people.
Rarga.
This guy's too good.
Yeah. One international player you would love to play on a team with. I mean, it has to be a funny guy.
Forsaken, I think, for me.
Forsaken?
I think so.
I think for me, Texture.
Yeah, I was thinking Texture.
Texture is actually a good one.
Texture could be a good one.
It seems like a good time.
Zach, be careful if Amin gets his green card.
Yeah, no, it's reps.
Zach, marry me for the green card.
Yes, sir.
Then we kick you.
How will you marry him but not me?
Work wife.
Work wife.
Okay. Whatever.
It's more my type.
All right, who'd you play with? Who'd you play with?
I think it'd be fun to play with Bolster. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking Bolster or Texture, but I'm trying to think of like other players.
I feel like Bolster would be like fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
I think Texture, like, he's definitely fun to play with, but like there's like English like barrier, like language barrier.
Trust me, bro. He'll learn.
He'll
learn real fast.
Bird.
I'll learn for him.
I'll
learn Korean for him.
Zach, who'd you play with?
Meteor.
Meteor? Ooh, that's a good one, actually.
See the boy run it down.
So I think, of course, they're going to look at Wolves, right? Like, they're going to mention the team that they happen to play in the first round of the Swiss stage. And that's, if you guys are unfamiliar with it, the matches are as follows. On the 7th of June, in just a couple of days' time, Heretics play Paper X, BLG play Liquid, and the day after, then Sen play Wolves, and Gen.G play MIBR. And, well, after those results, we'll see what happens next in the tournament, right? So, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. There was just one little scrim to mention here. Crew were down 4-6. Not not really sure who, but on this occasion, Nerve is not there anymore. So, you know, their scrims with Nerve didn't seem to be quite going to plan. Melsa potentially coming in instead. That's a big talking point going into, you know, the big tournament of the season. And then shortly after that, of course, it's the World Cup where this man, Boostio, will be there with 100T. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.